any wargame, anytime. Hey folks, welcome to Any Wargame Anytime. You're here with Boz and Dan and Sam, and we're going to talk about a video called We Need to Talk by Mini Wargames, and yeah, we've got some feelings about it. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing
Having
great. Doing
having
great.
lots of feelings.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I got talked to because I apparently needed a talk. So thank you for talking to me.
So Dan, why don't you give us a bit of an overview of what we're talking about?
Well, we saw this video, and I think all of us, we all follow miniwargaming.com. I think a lot of us like their work. Matt and Dave, they've been a lot of pillars in the wargaming community. And effectively a few days ago, Matt from Mini Wargaming posted this video, and it was "We Need to Talk," and it it sort of had kind of him. You can go watch the video; we'll post it, but it had kind of almost him this school teacher grimace about we've been bad girls and boys, I suppose, and that he's gonna apparently we have to have a talk, Boz and Sam. We've been bad boys and girls. So
Dan got very triggered by the video, so we but yeah, the premise, if you don't mind, Dan, is I'm gonna try to give this in a fair way,
yeah.
because I think, and we've all kind of heard this point made before, and anyone who's been in wargaming for a long time has probably heard this point made that, uh, you know, okay, the game's not balanced, but you should just try to have fun with it and not take it so seriously and enjoy your losses as much as your wins and blah blah blah. And I've heard this argument made. I've heard arguments like it made for a long time as kind of this defense of why it's okay that the game's not balanced. And this going to be applied whether it's this specific video is talking about 10th edition of 40K. But I've heard this argument back in Warhammer Fantasy days, and and same in the Kings of War community that I'm a part of now. People kind of make this, well, just have fun with the game and don't worry if it's balanced, you know. And it was very condescending. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oz, what's your feelings on this?
Well, I mean, a lot of what he's saying isn't fundamentally wrong. You shouldn't just be in it to win. If winning's the only way that you can have fun, you should probably look at your motivations for playing and all that sort of thing. But on the other hand, it's no fun if you don't expect to win at least a little bit. And kind of what he's saying is, well, I've played against this person with my Tyranids or whatever, and I've lost 3 out of 4 games, and it's been fun every single time. And I just, I call absolute bull on that. I've had fun games where I have lost. Absolutely, I have. And I'm not in it for the win and nothing else but the win. Although I do like to win. We all like to win, and it's pointless to pretend that we don't have more fun when we win, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the way that he goes about making his point, as you say, it does come across as quite condescending, and that he has found this great truth that he's imparting on us. I don't I
Yes.
don't think I was quite as triggered as you were about it, Dan, but that's also cool. We're here to react and feedback and give our take on things.
Well, I think to me, I think that probably I guess I expected more from Matt. Was the person who was always sort of the voice of reason in the community, I guess. And it's really strange from this coming from him that I think for me, especially when he starts talking about GW and he literally says GW is doing their best. And I just, I'm really surprised at that's just a really, and I think in the past, you guys know this, GW screwed them when they cut off, they've done them dirty. I don't
Yeah.
quite get, yeah, it's I guess to me it's more, I'm less triggered and just more disappointed. Maybe that's the
Yeah,
word.
And
I'm disappointed.
if you believe this is GW trying their best to, you know, do something good, message me, get in the comments. I've got some beachfront property in Arizona. I'd be interested in selling you.
Yeah, it's I just think, and we're going to go through some of these points that I would like to say it this way. I'm, as a person that is a fan of, I am disappointed in hearing his discussions, and I don't know where it's coming from either. I don't quite, it's just, he's been in the community a long time, and to kind of just come out there and get sort of condescending and then defend GW is just a very, it's something that, like I said, I think it probably isn't, I'm not the only person. I think all of us were surprised at sort of this
absolutely.
thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
And it's such
I,
a serious title, we need to talk.
yeah,
I have some great truths to impart upon the masses.
no,
there,
I
yeah.
do want to point out one thing too, because I think part of where this comes from is yes, war gamers tend to complain a lot, and I get sometimes it is you do get a little burned out when the community is so negative all the time, and Facebook or Discord or whatever you're looking at is just flooded by negative comments, and I get the pushback is, guys, can't we just just take a step back and have fun? And I understand where he's a little bit of that mentality, uh, but it's really it's a deflection, and it's there are problems with if there's problems with the game, those aren't going to go away, by being quiet about it or trying to focus on the good things and the fun stuff. If like, yes, it gets overwhelming when people pointing out the negative, but it's also important, and you need to listen to that.
When
It's
you're
It's, you know,
when you're talking specifically about 40K as well, this is a premium price point product.
mhm.
Like, it's more expensive by far than any other war game that I'm aware of. And it's, kind of the industry standard. You say wargaming and people go, 40K. It
Mhm.
shouldn't be unreasonable to be upset that we haven't got the best product that we could possibly have, and we don't.
Yeah, and
Not even close. Not even close.
especially if you've devoted thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours into an army. You don't want to spend all this time and money, building and painting and assembling an army, and then oh, comes the next edition or the next codex, and it turns out that everything you did was kind of for nothing, because the stuff you built and painted and looks really good is pretty much is going to look good on your shelf now because it's just not
That's
competitively
right. Yeah.
viable. And this idea that, well, we'll just play it for fun, play it anyway, and don't worry about if you're winning or losing. It's like it's a disingenuous answer. And
Well, it's almost like in this video, he sort of recognizes some of the things he's saying are bad. It's like almost in media res. He's like, "Ugh, this is a bad thing." Where he's like, "Well, I know you're probably," and it's almost like he knows this argument is going to come against him, and he wants to deflect it when it's a very valid argument, which is that you have a studio, you've got dozens of armies, you have great players that play against you, and you get to switch armies whenever you want. And he's like, I know that's how it seems, but I'm still going to almost say it anyway. It's almost like he seems to acknowledge that he's completely out of touch, just completely out of touch, and then says that as a possible argument and then just dismisses it. He's like, but I'm still correct. It's like and this is, to me, this is a symptom of, this is something that the reason we started this podcast, we wanted to really see the perspective of an everyday gamers. we aren't coming from the perspective of people who have dozens of armies, who have all this time and all these studios. We tried to take the perspective of just an average gamer. And it's something that in this video, we'll get into more. He takes a lot of straw man arguments about, he basically portrays his people he's talking to as the worst possible people, right? We're bad sportsmen. He says at one point, he says, like, in a perfectly balanced game, you're only going to win 50% of your games.
Yeah,
Now,
that was the dumbest thing he said.
all right.
Like by far. I I don't even know how you come up with a figure like I mean if the game is flipping a coin and seeing if it comes up heads or tails, then maybe that's the case. But in a perfectly balanced game, your wins and losses would be based off of player skill, and that's
Yeah.
okay, you know.
Yeah. And like he's completely wrong about that. But then he says, at that point, though, you are only going to enjoy your wins and only going to enjoy to your losses. That's just a straw man argument. It's taking his opponents at the worst possible case, right? It's just saying, this is who you are. You only care about your wins. And you like, it's not in any way discounting, was it a well-fought battle? Was it a curb stomp? Were you curb stomp? Like, there's so much in there, right?
Yeah, and I think that I've definitely had fun in games losing. I have a guy I play against. Used to play against more regularly than now, but you know, who would basically beat me every game. I don't think I've ever won against him. We'd meet each other in tournaments, big tournaments, and he would just stomp me. And I always had fun because I enjoyed playing with him. And I also, the games were close, and you know, and I felt like I learned a lot as a player from playing against him. But you know, then I've also had games back in the Warhammer Fantasy day where my opponent went first and they had three cannons and they shot off
Mm-hmm.
my dragon and then panicked my dragon princes, and they, you know, on turn one, and it's like, okay, well, I might as well just have not played, you know. And it, you know, so there's it's not that you can't have fun losing a game, but it, you know, there's, you've still got to play the game. And sometimes
Well,
when things are so mismatched, you sit down and you don't even feel like I don't even feel like I played a game.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess, what's the word? But what is his solution to this problem? Guys, we need to cheer our opponent. Just whenever we're losing, we need to cheer their move. It's, is that to me just a little strange? Like, to be like, I don't know. It feels sort of just I'm trying to think of it. Like, it just feels kind of a weird to do in reality, right? Oh, wow, you beat my army. Good job. You know, it feels sort of, pause, what you think? Fake?
Well, if someone makes a good roll on a cool thing that's just genuinely cool, that's one thing. I'm going to be like, okay, you just melted my tank into slag with an impossible shot. That was, you know, that was very cinematically cool, and, you know, not well done to you for rolling the dice and having them come up that way, because that's chance. But yeah, no, that was cool. That was a good moment. I'm going to talk about that moment. But I'm not going to cheer you on every time you take out another one of my squads, especially if we're talking about a game that I am kind of losing quite badly. You're having a lot of luck with your rolls. I might not be having the best luck with my rolls, and it probably wasn't a balanced kind of point for point thing to begin with. And hell no, I'm not going to be cheering you on. I'm going to be trying to think about how I can turn the tables, and if it's even possible for me to turn the tables. I'm not mad that you're winning, but I'm also not going to cheer you on for winning and kicking my behind, am I?
Yeah. Do you guys think, and this is an interesting point he brings up, and Sam kind of hit on it. So, yes, you can always have people on the internet complaining, but can that complaints be mitigated by the quality of a game? Is that possible? I mean, what do y'all think about that? I mean,
I
like,
think so. Clearly, I think that, you know, some people are going to just complain no matter what the situation is, and that's kind of human nature. He does point out in this video a valid point, which is we tend to remember negative experiences more prominently than positive experiences,
Yeah.
at least in kind of our recent history. Uh, and some people, yeah, and some people are just kind of complainers. To be fair, I'm probably a little bit of a complainer. And that's just my personality. I'm a bit of a cynic. Uh, Whatever. But the idea that that can't be mitigated by the fact that, like, well, the game is actually in a good place. I think that's a silly notion. I think, you know,
is it less that so it's funny because we've been talking about OPR 3.0 release, and there's a lot of people, I guess you could say, complaining or critiquing, but you also tend to see over there that the people responsible for the rules are responding, right? And sometimes those responses don't come back good or best. In other words, but is that part of it as well, that you feel that your responses are noted, and is he makes it to be a bad thing or knee jerk, but I guess where, like, it's a good question, right? How does a game company try to work with feedback, and how soon should they respond, right?
I was going to touch on that as well. Just the fact that I'm on groups for different games. I'm on 40k groups. I'm on OPR groups. I'm on groups for Nordic Weasel games. Shout out to Ivan. You make awesome games. The negatives that I hear over on 40k are loud. They are loud. They are constant. There's good stuff in there too. But I think it has much more and because it's so much more negative voices over there, I think it's actually got more to do with the fact that the game's not in a very good state and hasn't been for a long time. I think if what you say, if what he says is true, and that people are just complaining because people complain, and sure, people complain because people complain. That's why there's more negative reviews generally than positive ones, because you don't bother posting about your neutral or your good experience. You post about when you're annoyed. But at the same time, I'm in these other groups, and there's some people going, "Oh yeah, well, this is a bit crap. This could be changed for the better. Why can't it be like this?" But on 40k, it's like my entire army just got nerfed by this most recent thing. I'm a Gene Stealer cult player as well, and we just went from being one of the best armies in the game to one of the worst because of all the nerfs. And I think the negativity over there is justified because the game isn't particularly good. And like I said, it's a premiumly priced game. It should be good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You're spending a lot of time and money on this, and in most of my recent wargaming experience comes from Kings of War, and I can look back, a couple years ago, back when we were still in second edition Kings of War, and on the Facebook page and the server and the forums and whatnot, like, it wasn't as negative. There were still people who would post negative stuff, but you know, largely I thought the level of comments was not as negative.
Yeah.
But
I think
that's
so it does, like, it's on the game companies to do something about this, not not your local tournament organizers, not your local player base. If the game is broken, that is the problem. That is the ultimately the responsibility for that falls with the game designer.
Absolutely.
and it's not even for me. I don't even think it's fair to even compare something like Mantic or of these things who have much less budgets. I mean, this is GW. To think that, are we wrong for doing that? A game as big as GW, who has done it for such a long time, they're new. that they still are just producing really unbalanced games, and they know their community has wanted it for years. I mean, at what point, I mean, is it wrong that we should hold them to a greater standard? And like, I get it that people want to complain, but the only reason that GW has, to me, made any improvements is because people have complained. So, like, where do you find that balance? And I don't have the answer, but I definitely, to me, the answer isn't to do battle scars on your units and make up a story, right? It's just sort of a window dressing bandage approach to this thing.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
Matt really came across as a Games Workshop apologist in this video. He's, my takeaway from it is him saying it doesn't matter that the game is bad. It's on us to try and make it fun. And I fundamentally disagree with that statement and with that view. It's on the company to make the game as enjoyable as possible so we can take it and have fun with it.
Yeah. And
well, yeah,
what I think that people get sidetracked into this kind of corporate loyalty argument, and they do this with Games Workshop, they do this with Mantic, they do this with a whole bunch of games. It's like, well, if we don't support the game, that's not going to be around, so we need to support them in the company and keep it going and whatnot. And what I think people don't realize is the lifeblood of any war game is new players coming into the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are, and if the and what's going to get new players to come into the hobby and keep them there is a good game.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what's the most important for that.
Also, Games Workshop is a publicly traded company, and their quarterly financial reports are a matter of public record. I urge anybody who thinks that if we don't support them, they're going to go away, to look up those reports and have a look at their profit margins that have just been on the increase for the last 2 decades. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think, and we won't. Let's come up with some solutions, because I feel Matt has basically thrown out. I think that we would all agree his solutions are not adequate. So maybe we can close off this. Let's each try and give Matt some solution. Maybe he's gone to the mountaintop and he's gained this great knowledge about, right, cheering your opponents. So we've all been to the mountaintop as well, right? Boz and Sam. And we've discovered some great truths for him. And let's each of us perhaps leave one of these great truths that's going to blow his mind. So for me, you go ahead. Yes, Sam, go ahead.
I'm gonna jump ahead of you here and go first.
Okay.
Because one of the things he talks about is, well, you don't want there to be a knee jerk reaction, when things are bad, and then things immediately get nerfed, and he's right about that. And so I want to also point out a model that I think works really well for game balance. This is what Kings of War used to do. They've kind of moved away from this in recent years, but where you would have all the codexes were basically in 2 books. And then there was a yearly Clash of Kings update, which had balance changes, adjustments. It would add new things to every faction. Sometimes would add a new faction. And that was a really great system because, outside of things that kind of were like a typo or something, and that had to be in an FAQ, you had basically for the next year, you knew what was going to be in the tournament scene and what wasn't, what was going to be available for everybody. And you could see that, and sometimes there would be a list that would be, over the top, and everybody would kind of acknowledge, yeah, this is a really broken combination or whatnot. But it was out in the open, it was clear, and you had kind of a timeline on how long that was going to be in the meta. And with that system, you were able to then, okay, well, maybe there's a really powerful meta list. Well, can I come up with something that beats that? Mm-hmm. And since all of the information's kind of out in the open, and it's again, you have the details in the timeline, I thought that was a really good system. It's one of the things that got me back into Kings of War after I had kind of exited wargaming for a while. And I would like to see more companies adopt that.
Yeah, I think it's good. Well, I mean, I'll give my advice on this. Just again, we're all kind of on the grizzled side of our lives, and my advice that I've learned about taking my own criticism about here is that you should always, your critics are your best friend. If you really want to grow as a person, grow and be better at your job and be better, the best people to look at are your critics, because they don't care about hurting your feelings. They don't care about doing so. And the other thing, and part of that, is that you should take your critics, like you should always take the strongest possible argument of your critics and not do as I feel Sam was doing. As Matt was doing in this thing, and basically straw man the opponents, call them petty, using things like knee-jerk reaction to say they don't know what they're doing, to just, basically say that offhanded remarks that they're bad sportsmen. If you want, if you really want to be just in life in general, learn to take your critics and to kind of be a straw man argument, to when you get criticized, to take the possibly best argument for those critics and to listen to it. And that's tough. That is hard. But that is how you get better. And it's how Games Workshop, we all are going to get better, is sometimes criticism, a lot of times criticism is from a valid place. And Boz, what's your great knowledge?
So my great knowledge is this. If the game, whatever game, if the game is in such a state where you have to come up with these things just to enjoy it, just to say, oh, well, you got to start cheering on your opponent when you're losing, blah, blah, blah. I think the best thing you can do in that situation is vote with your wallet. There are other games to play. There are more balanced games to play. There are different styles of game to play. You do not have to play this game if the only way that you can enjoy it is the way that Matt is suggesting. Now, he says, I am having the time of my life playing 40K, and that's great. Good for him. I'm very happy for him. It should be noted here that this particular episode isn't about, we're not attacking Matt. What we're doing is responding to his words. And my response to his words are, if that's what I need to do to enjoy this particular game, then I'm just going to stop playing it. I'm going to hope that enough people stop playing it that maybe they might sit up and take notice and spend a lot more time in development and pre-release development and release a good product. If any company releases a good product that I'm interested in playing, I'm going to play it. That's it. Yeah. That's all. That's what I got.
I think that's probably the best advice right there.
That's why we're any war game anytime, right?
That's it.
We this is our core philosophy, is we're not gonna have this kind of blind loyalty to any one group. We're gonna go where the game is good.
I like that.
Yep. Going where the game is good. That's our new subtitle. Thank you very kindly.
I like that.
I like it too. And I came up with it.
Copyright Sam 2023. Well, I think that about wraps us up for this episode. Cheers to all of us for coming out and having a chat, and thanks to all of you for listening. And, it's great. We've only been doing this for a month or two now, and the support we've been getting has been fantastic. Keep letting us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see us do next. And until next time, happy wargaming.
Happy wargaming.
Go where the game is good.
I like it.
Go where the game is good.
Go where the game is good.
Yes. any wargame, anytime.